All right, settle in, folks. Or don't. Maybe stand, keep your options open, because today we're diving headfirst into a topic that's guaranteed to make your skin crawl, or at the very least make you eye that porcelain doll your grandma gave you with a newfound suspicion. Welcome to a spine-chilling journey through the world of haunted dolls. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, dolls, really. Aren't those just for, tea parties and innocent childhood make-believe? Well, strap yourselves in, because the playthings we're about to discuss are a far cry from your average Cabbage Patch Kid. Unless your Cabbage Patch Kid also has a penchant for giggling in the dark and, rearranging your kitchen knives. These dolls are not just toys, they are vessels of eerie and unsettling tales. We're talking about objects that, according to legend, lore, and some genuinely freaked out eyewitnesses, have become attached to spirits, entities, or just some seriously bad vibes. Think of them as little inanimate roommates who don't pay rent but do allegedly move on their own, whisper threats, or even cause misfortune. It's the kind of stuff that makes you wonder if the person who first thought, let's make a miniature, lifeless version of a human, had some kind of dark premonition. Or maybe they were just bored. Either way, they've given us a rich tapestry of terror to explore. So, why dolls? What is it about these miniature human effigies that makes them such prime real estate for the paranormal? Is it their blank staring eyes that seem to follow you around the room? Is it the uncanny valley effect where they look almost human but just off? Or is it simply that we as humans are programmed to imbue them with life, and sometimes, just sometimes, something else decides to take us up on that offer? Whatever the reason, the stories persist, passed down through generations, whispered in hushed tones. And today we're going to drag a few of these pint-sized pariahs into the harsh, unforgiving light. Let's get into it. First up on our parade of porcelain nightmares is a fellow who's practically a celebrity in the haunted doll community, Robert. Now, Robert isn't your mass-produced, off-the-shelf kind of creepy. He's a one-of-a-kind, handmade doll allegedly gifted to a young boy named Robert Eugene Otto, or Gene, as he preferred, in Key West, Florida, way back in the early 1900s. The story goes that the doll was given by a disgruntled servant who dabbled in voodoo, which, if true, is generally not the best way to start a human-doll relationship. Gene, however, loved Robert. Loved him so much, in fact, that he'd blame Robert for any mischief he got up to. Robert did it. Became a common refrain in the Otto household. Classic kid stuff, right? Except, according to the law, things got weirder. Servants in the Otto home reportedly heard Gene talking to the doll, and then a different, deeper voice responding. Neighbours claimed to see Robert moving from window to window when the family wasn't home. Furniture would be overturned, toys mutilated, and Gene would be terrified, always insisting Robert was the culprit. Now, you could chalk this up to an overactive imagination or a kid trying to avoid a spanking. But the stories persisted even after Gene grew up. He kept Robert, even building him a special room in the attic. People who visited the house reported hearing footsteps and giggling coming from upstairs, even when no one was supposedly up there with Robert. It's the kind of detail that makes you think maybe Gene wasn't just making excuses. After Gene's death, Robert was rediscovered, sailor suit and all, and eventually ended up in the Key West Martello Museum. And this is where it gets really interesting for the modern ghoul seeker. Visitors to the museum claim Robert doesn't like having his picture taken without permission. The legend states that if you snap a pic without asking nicely, you'll be cursed with bad luck. Anything from car trouble to relationship woes to, a sudden inexplicable craving for tiny sailor suits. The museum even has a whole wall of letters from people apologizing to Robert, begging him to lift their alleged curses. So, is Robert a conduit for the paranormal? Or just a really effective way to enforce museum etiquette? You decide. but I'd probably ask permission, just in case. Better safe than sorry when dealing with a doll that has more mail than I do. Alright, let's talk about Annabelle. And no, I'm not talking about the terrifying porcelain nightmare from the movies, though. We'll get to why she looks like that. The real Annabelle is, believe it or not, a Raggedy Ann doll. Yeah, one of those floppy, yarn-haired, perpetually smiling figures, which, frankly, makes the whole thing even creepier. Imagine that innocent, button-eyed grin, knowing it's allegedly tied to some seriously dark stuff. The story begins in 1970, when a nursing student named Donna was gifted the doll by her mother. Soon after, Donna and her roommate Angie noticed Annabelle seemed to move on her own. Subtle things at first, like changing positions but then escalating to appearing in different rooms altogether. Now, moving is one thing, but then came the notes. Donna and Angie reportedly found parchment paper notes with messages like "Help us" or "Help Lou" scrawled in childish handwriting. The kicker, they didn't even own parchment paper. This is when they decided, quite reasonably, that maybe this wasn't just a quirky doll. They called in a medium who told them the doll was inhabited by the spirit of a young girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the property where their apartment building now stood. Annabelle, the spirit, supposedly liked the nursing students and wanted to stay with them, to be loved. So Donna and Angie, being compassionate types, gave permission for Annabelle to inhabit the doll. Big mistake, huge. Things apparently took a darker turn after that. Their friend Lou, who was skeptical of the whole thing and openly disliked the doll, allegedly had terrifying experiences. He reported nightmares of Annabelle choking him, and one instance where he woke up with what looked like claw marks on his chest. This is when Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators, were called in. They concluded that it wasn't a little girl spirit at all, but a demonic entity manipulating them, using the doll as a conduit with the ultimate goal of possessing one of the humans. They claimed the doll itself wasn't possessed, but rather infested or manipulated by this inhuman spirit. Semantics, really, when a doll is allegedly trying to ruin your life. The Warrens took Annabelle, and she now resides in their occult museum in Connecticut, locked in a glass case with a whole bunch of warnings. They even have a priest bless the case regularly, because when a Raggedy Ann doll needs a priest on retainer, you know things are serious. Chapter 3, Mandy the Doll, Tears in the Night, and a Trail of Tampered Tapes. Next on our tour of Tiny Terrors is Mandy, a porcelain doll that dates back to the early 20th century, possibly from Germany or England. Her story begins, as many of these do, with an unsettling feeling. In 1991, a woman donated Mandy to the Canal Museum in British Columbia, Canada. The donor claimed she couldn't keep Mandy anymore because she would hear a baby crying in the night, coming from the basement where the doll was kept, but when she'd investigate, she'd find nothing but Mandy, sitting there with her cracked face and eerily vacant stare. She even said the windows would fly open on their own. Standard haunted doll starter pack, if you will. Once Mandy arrived at the museum, the staff reportedly started experiencing their own share of oddities. Museum workers claimed that Mandy couldn't be displayed with other dolls because she would, and I quote, harm them. Now, what doll-on-doll violence looks like, I'm not entirely sure, but it's a bold claim. So Mandy got her own display case, probably for the safety of the other exhibits. Staff members also reported that lunches would disappear from the fridge, only to turn up later, tucked away in strange places. Office supplies like pens and books would go missing or be moved around. Footsteps were heard when no one was there. It's like having a very, very subtle poltergeist who also has a penchant for light office pranks. But perhaps the most unsettling claims surrounding Mandy involve electronic equipment. Paranormal investigators and museum staff trying to film or record near Mandy have reported cameras and other devices inexplicably malfunctioning, batteries draining suddenly, or tapes being mysteriously blank or distorted. Some even claim to have captured EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. of a child crying or giggling near her. There are also tales of Mandy's eyes following people as they move around the room, and some visitors report feeling a profound sadness or unease when near her. Is Mandy truly haunted by a restless spirit, perhaps the child whose cries were heard by her original owner, or is she just a creepy old doll in a museum setting that encourages spooky stories? The museum staff seem to lean towards the former, treating her with a certain cautious respect. And honestly, if my doll was allegedly messing with my lunch, I'd probably do the same. Chapter 4. Okiku Doll, the hair-raising tale of a growing legend. Now let's journey to Japan for our next unsettling companion, the Okiku Doll. This isn't your typical porcelain princess or button-eyed baby. Okiku is a traditional Japanese doll, about 40 centimeters tall, dressed in a kimono, with a bob haircut of dark, straight hair. The story begins in 1918 when a 17-year-old boy named Eikichi Suzuki bought the doll in Sapporo for his 2-year-old sister, Kikuko. Kikuko loved the doll, named it Okiku after herself, or perhaps the doll was already named Okiku, accounts vary, and played with it constantly. Tragically, Kikuko fell ill with influenza and died the following year. The family, heartbroken, kept Okiku and placed her on their household altar to pray for Kikuko. This is where things take a turn for the truly bizarre. The family began to notice something strange about Okiku's hair. It appeared to be growing. Slowly but undeniably, the doll's initially shoulder-length bob started to lengthen, eventually reaching down to its knees. Even when they trimmed the hair, it would supposedly grow back. Now, theories abound for this. Some skeptics suggest it's an optical illusion, or perhaps the type of hair fiber used could react to humidity or temperature in a way that makes it seem like it's growing. But the family, and later the priests who took custody of the doll, were convinced it was a supernatural phenomenon linked to the spirit of young Kikuko. In 1938, the Suzuki family moved, and they entrusted Okiku to the care of the Manenji Temple in Iwamizawa, Hokkaido. And that's where Okiku resides to this day, a tiny kimono-clad figure with a surprisingly long hairdo. The priests at the temple continue to trim Okiku's hair, and they claim it continues to grow. They even say that scientific examination, though details are a bit sparse on this examination, revealed the hair to be human child's hair. Whether that's true or part of the legend, the image of this doll, sitting quietly in a temple, its hair slowly, inexplicably lengthening, is undeniably unsettling. It's a more subtle kind of horror, a quiet, persistent weirdness that gets under your skin. Is it Kikuko's spirit, forever tied to her beloved toy, or a very elaborate, long-running mystery of follicular fortitude? Either way, pass the scissors. Chapter 5. Let Me Out. No, seriously, don't let him out. Our final stop on this creepy doll express is a gentleman named Letter Me Out, or just Letter for short. And let me tell you, this doll looks the part. We're talking unsettling wooden features, real human hair, allegedly, and glass eyes that seem to stare right through you. Letter was discovered in 1972 by a man named Kerry Walton under the floorboards of an abandoned house in Wagga Wagga, Australia. According to Walton, the moment he found the doll, he felt an overwhelming sense of dread, but also an inexplicable urge to take it with him. Classic horror movie decision-making right there. Walton claims that Letter has a rather dark and dramatic backstory. He consulted psychics and mediums, because of course he did, who told him the doll was made over 200 years ago in Eastern Europe by a Romani craftsman for his son, who had tragically drowned. The craftsman supposedly imbued the doll with his son's spirit, so a part of him would live on. The name Letter Me Out apparently comes from the doll itself, which psychics claim is desperately trying to communicate its desire to be, well, let out. From what exactly is a bit unclear. Its wooden prison, its earthly tether, my nightmares. The alleged phenomena surrounding Letter are pretty varied. Walton reports that the doll moves on its own, objects around it fall or shift, and it even seems to have an effect on the weather, specifically rain, when taken outside. Dogs supposedly bark and snarl at it, and some people feel an intense wave of sadness or fear in its presence. Walton has appeared on numerous TV shows with Letter, and the doll has become something of a macabre celebrity in Australia. He even claims that people who have mocked or disrespected Letter have suffered misfortune. It's the Robert the Doll playbook, but with an Australian accent and more alleged Romani curses. Whether you believe the elaborate backstory or the reported paranormal activity, there's no denying Letter is one creepy-looking dude. He's the kind of doll that, if you saw it in an antique shop, you'd probably walk a little faster to the next aisle. Or if you're Kerry Walton, you take it home and build your life around it. Different strokes, I guess. Chapter 6. Packing up the playthings and maybe sleeping with one eye open. Well, there you have it. 5 dolls, 5 stories, and a whole heap of nope. Thanks for joining us on this eerie exploration of haunted dolls. From Robert's alleged curses to Annabelle's demonic attachments, Mandy's ghostly cries, Okiku's ever-growing hair, and Letter's desperate pleas, it's clear that these are more than just inanimate objects to the people whose lives they've touched, or, in some cases, terrorized. Whether you're a hardened skeptic or a true believer, there's something undeniably fascinating and, frankly, a little unnerving about the idea that something so innocent-looking could harbour such dark secrets. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other seemingly ordinary objects out there might have a story to tell, a presence lingering within them? Are these tales simply the product of overactive imaginations, misinterpretations, and the power of suggestion? Or is there something more, something truly unexplainable at play? I don't have the definitive answers, and honestly, I'm not sure I want them, especially if they involve a doll. Asking me for help in the middle of the night. Remember, sometimes the scariest things come in the smallest packages, especially if that package is wearing a tiny sailor suit and demands your respect. So, next time you're in an antique store or rummaging through your attic and you come across an old doll with eyes that seem a little too knowing, maybe give it a polite nod, just in case. And on that slightly unsettling note, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories. Let us know in the comments which doll freaked you out the most, or if you have any haunted toy stories of your own. Until next time, try not to dream of little wooden feet pattering down the hallway. Sleep tight, or, don't. Or you